Hello Proponomics people, and welcome to the longer form explainer video for the 21st of December 2023. And this one today is about shareholders, it's also about executive directors, and it's about non-executive directors. So starting off with shareholders first of all, who are they? They are the people who own the company. And how do they benefit from owning the company? Well, if there are any dividends declared, then the shareholders will get to receive those in the proportion of which they own the company. And also they should benefit from capital value increasing within a growing company. So they are the ones who own the equity. If it's a big publicly listed company, like someone like Amazon, for example, then if you bought shares 20 years ago, you would be able to sell them for a large capital uplift today. You also would have had some distribution of profits or dividends in the interim. So there's really two ways they benefit from a company. Now, of course, in a smaller company, it may well be you have one shareholder, and that's you, and you are also the executive director. So every company needs a director, someone who takes the responsibility for making sure that apart from anything else, the law is followed as far as the Companies Act 2006 goes. The director will have a number of responsibilities, including ensuring that confirmation statements and accounts are filed on time within the United Kingdom. But they will direct the business from day to day. That is the point. In a larger company, of course, there are several directors, and there are also layers of management beneath, and also frontline staff is a typical setup. So why do we use the term executive director? Because they are executing things from day to day. They are running departments. They have responsibility for specific parts of the business, and therefore they are executive directors. And then we have the concept of a non-executive director. So these normally start to get introduced into companies when companies want to grow, can afford to take on a few extra overheads, and realise that they need some extra expertise. So you can have a company which has only got one director in, and then brings in a non-executive director in order to help with all of those things. You often see more of them. And if you looked at the board of the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee, for example, there are a number of externals on that committee, which is mimicking the idea of the non-executive directors. So often industry experts with lots of time in the industry, they aren't necessarily working day to day anymore. They will attend the board meetings, listen to the board reports, and the good ones will be on the end of the phone when you need them for specific problem solving or anything like that. Depends on the size of the organisation. But they help with transparency, and they help with governance, just to make sure that the directors aren't closing themselves in a room and, for example, giving themselves a massive pay rise that's going to upset all of the shareholders. So is it possible to be all three? Well, not really in the same company. Quite often in small companies, the shareholder is the director, the executive director, or you might be a shareholder and a non-executive director. That might happen as part of a startup arrangement or something like that. But the thing you can't be is an executive director and a non-executive director in the same company. Of course, you might be an executive director in one company and a non-executive director in another company. That's perfectly possible and might well be reasonable. And there might be a reason for that. For example, down the line, you might be friendly competitors who at some point down the line think there might be a merger on the cards. You might be one in the same industry or the same sector, but there might be differences between your two businesses with not much overlap. So it might benefit you to collaborate. And it may be that one has a lot more experience than the other, but you have a good, solid working relationship. So those are the three types of important roles within a company that I wanted to cover today. How many shares might there be in a company? Well, there can be anything from 1 to tens of millions or even more in big publicly listed companies. It doesn't really matter. It's up to you. The nominal value of the shares, which is just the pounds and pence value of them, is only what they were issued at in the first place. It isn't necessarily the value of those shares, and that's normally determined by the market. Of course, when you're not traded on a public exchange, it's a lot harder to sell shares or interest anybody else in buying shares. And several times in the past, I've been approached by people or have become aware of people who've got businesses for sale, but actually they want to sell half the business or a smaller fraction of the business. Now, it's quite common in private equity for a funder to take a minority stake in a business first of all. It might be a majority stake depending on how much money they've got to supply, and just provide the money behind it. And then effectively they will have non-execs who sit on the board and ensure that everything's being run correctly and all the news is going back to them, all the information that they need. Not uncommon in quite a few size companies of maybe only 7 or 8 staff. If there's been private equity in from the start, you might also sell a small slice to private equity in a growing business so they can bring more money in, which they'll normally introduce as debt, expecting to be serviced on a coupon. They'll take a slice of the equity, and then they will also help massively with managing the process of perhaps a sale further down the line, or introducing another buyer to buy them out. You might take a business from, if it's a trading business, 5 million turnover to 20 million turnover with one private equity backer, and then you might get another one in who buys the first backer out, perhaps takes more of the shares, but helps go from 20 million to 100 million because they've done it before. And everybody has a point, normally, at which they top out. Perhaps not the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezoses of the world, but us mere mortals normally have a point where we top out. So thanks for listening to this one, and I'll see you again tomorrow.